Every collapse has warning signs. Every crash has signals that came before. The housing market in 2008. People saw the subprime mortgages stacking up, saw the loans being approved for people who couldn't pay, saw the whole system straining under weight it wasn't designed to carry. The signals were there. Enron, the energy traders saw the fake accounts, saw the shell companies, saw the math that didn't add up no matter how many times you ran it. The signals were there. The Titanic had lookouts in the crow's nest. They spotted the iceberg, called it in, sounded the alarm. The signals were there. They just didn't turn fast enough. That's how collapse works. It's never a surprise to everyone. It's a surprise to the people who weren't paying attention, who trusted the people in charge, who assumed someone would fix it before things got bad. The insiders always know first, then the analysts, then the workers, then finally, too late, everyone else. Vegas has warning signs right now. 10 of them, flashing red, visible to anyone who knows where to look. And almost everyone is looking the other way. I need you to understand something about this list. These aren't predictions. I'm not guessing. I'm not speculating. I'm not reading tea leaves or interpreting vibes or making dramatic claims for clicks. These are documented, measurable, undeniable indicators that a system is failing. Numbers you can verify, patterns you can track. Signals that have preceded every major industry collapse in modern American history. Retail had these signs before the malls went dark, before the anchor stores shuttered, before the food courts became echo chambers. The signals flashed for years. The executives ignored them. The analysts wrote reports nobody read. The workers watched it happen from the inside. Then suddenly, not suddenly, it was over. Newspapers had these signs before the layoffs started, before the bureaus closed, before journalism became a ghost of what it used to be. The signals were there, the subscription numbers, the advertising trends, the math that stopped working. Everyone saw it. Nobody stopped it. Detroit had these signs before the factories rusted, before the neighborhoods emptied, before an entire city became a cautionary tale. The warning lights blinked for a generation. The response came too late. That's the pattern. Signals flash, people ignore, collapse arrives, everyone acts surprised. Vegas has these signals now, every single one of them. And the response so far? More of the same. Raise prices, cut workers, load debt, extract what's left. The ship sees the iceberg. The ship is not turning. Now, if this is your first time on this channel, this is what I do. I don't do hot takes. I don't do speculation. I show you the numbers, the patterns, the documented evidence that something is breaking. And right now, something is breaking in Las Vegas. If you want to understand what's actually happening, not the press releases, not the marketing, but the measurable reality underneath, subscribe now. Because this list isn't just about Vegas. These same warning signs show up everywhere, every industry, every economy. Learning to read them might be the most valuable skill you develop this year. Let's get into it. Before we start the countdown, I need to tell you about a conversation I had. I put this list together over several weeks, gathered the data, verified the sources, built the case piece by piece. Then I showed it to an economist, someone who studies industry collapse professionally, who wrote papers on the death of retail, on the hollowing out of American manufacturing, on the patterns that precede systemic failure. I wanted a reality check. Maybe I was being too dramatic. Maybe these signals weren't as significant as I thought. Maybe there was a counter argument I was missing. She looked at the list for maybe 30 seconds, scrolled through, nodded a few times, made a small sound I couldn't interpret. Then she said something I haven't stopped thinking about. She said, "This isn't a warning anymore. This is a diagnosis." I asked her what she meant. She said, "Warning signs are signals that something might happen. They give you time to respond, to change course, to prevent the outcome. But there's a point where warning signs become something else, where they stop predicting a possible future and start documenting an inevitable one. That's what this list is. You're not showing me what could happen to Vegas. You're showing me what's already happening. The diagnosis has been made. You're just reading the chart. The diagnosis has been made. That phrase has been rattling around my head ever since. Because she's right. At some point, warning signs stop being warnings. They become autopsy notes. Causes of death documented while the patient is still breathing. Let me show you what she saw. Number 10, executive exodus. When leadership starts leaving, pay attention. Not retirements, Not lateral moves announced with celebration and gratitude. Not the normal churn of people moving between companies. Voluntary departures. Executives walking away before their contracts end, before their stock options fully vest, before they've extracted everything the position offers. That's the signal, because executives have the best view. They sit in the rooms where the real numbers get discussed, where the projections get revised downward for the third time this quarter, where the conversations happen about what gets cut next and how long the money lasts. They see things shareholders don't see, things customers don't see, things workers only suspect, and when executives start leaving, it means they've seen something they don't want to be around for. 3 major casino executives have departed in the last 8 months, all voluntarily, all before their terms ended, all moving to positions that pay less, carry less prestige, and offer less upside. Think about that. These are people who climbed to the top of one of the most competitive industries in America, who fought for decades to reach these positions, who have every incentive to stay and collect their compensation. They're leaving anyway. Rats don't leave comfortable ships. They leave ships that are taking on water. Number 10, executive exodus. The first signal, now. Executives leaving is concerning, but it's not conclusive. People change jobs. Industries evolve. Sometimes the timing is just coincidence. You can explain away number 10 if you want to. Number 9 is harder. Number 9 is the signal that tells you the executives know something they're not saying publicly, something they can't say publicly, because saying it out loud would trigger the very collapse they're trying to delay. And what they know, what the numbers show, what the next signal reveals. That's when this stops feeling like analysis and starts feeling like an obituary. Number 9, dividend cuts. This one requires a little explanation. When a company is healthy, it does something simple. It makes money, and some of that money flows back to the people who own the company, the shareholders, the investors, the pension funds and retirement accounts that bet on this business. That's a dividend. A regular payment, quarterly usually. A signal to the market that says we're doing well, here's your share of the success. Companies protect their dividends like sacred objects. They'll cut marketing before cutting dividends. They'll lay off workers before cutting dividends. They'll sell assets and close locations and do almost anything before they touch that payment. Because the moment you cut a dividend, you're admitting something. You're telling the market that you need the money. That the cash flowing out is cash you can't spare. That the confidence you've been projecting doesn't match the reality you're living. It's a confession dressed as a financial decision. 2 major gaming companies reduced their dividends this year. Reduced, not eliminated, just quietly lowered the amount. But one company went further, eliminated theirs entirely. Gone. The money that used to flow to shareholders now stays inside the company because they need it desperately. Wall Street noticed. The stock prices tell the story. Down 20%, 30%, more for some. That's not a market overreaction. That's a market reading the signal correctly. When companies stop returning money to shareholders, it means they're hoarding cash, building reserves, preparing for something they see coming that they haven't told you about yet. Number 8, credit downgrades. There are agencies whose entire job is assessing risk. Moody's, S&P, Fitch. They look at companies, they look at debt, they look at the ability to pay that debt back, and they issue ratings, grades, report cards for financial health. These agencies are conservative by nature. They don't downgrade on speculation. They don't lower ratings because of bad vibes. They move slowly, carefully, only when the evidence becomes undeniable. Moody's downgraded 3 casino operators in the last 12 months. 3. In a single year. That's not routine adjustment, that's alarm bells. The ratings agencies are saying, in their formal, careful language, that these companies are less likely to pay back what they owe than they were a year ago. That the risk has increased. That the trajectory is wrong. And here's what that means practically. When your credit rating drops, borrowing gets more expensive. Interest rates climb. The debt you're already drowning in becomes heavier. The water rises faster. It's a spiral. Worse credit means higher costs. Higher costs mean less money for operations. Less money for operations means worse performance. Worse performance means worse credit. Round and round. The bond markets are pricing in default risk that didn't exist 2 years ago. Default. That's not a word that gets used casually in finance. That's the end of the road. and the markets are starting to factor it in. Number 7. Asset fire sales. Every company has crown jewels. The properties they'll never sell, the brands they built over decades, the locations they fought for, invested in, made synonymous with their identity. When those assets hit the market, something has gone very wrong. I'm not talking about routine portfolio management. Companies buy and sell properties all the time. That's normal business. I'm talking about desperation. Properties being quietly shopped that leadership swore were untouchable. Conversations happening behind closed doors that shouldn't be happening. Investment bankers making calls to potential buyers that would have been unthinkable 3 years ago. The crown jewels are on the table now. Not because anyone wants to sell them, because the balance sheets need rescue. I can't name specific properties. Not yet. The deals haven't closed, the announcements haven't been made, but the conversations are happening. The people who know are talking. And what they're describing isn't strategic repositioning. It's survival mode. Executives fleeing, dividends dying, credit collapsing, assets liquidating. 4 warning signs. And we're not even halfway through the list. But here's the thing about signs 9 through 7. They're internal signals, things that happen in boardrooms and on earnings calls, numbers buried in financial statements, patterns only visible if you know where to look. Most visitors never see them. Most tourists have no idea. Number 6 is different. Number 6 is the signal you can see from the street. Number 6, visible decay. Walk a casino floor. Any casino, pick one. But walk it with your eyes open, really open. Not dazzled by the lights, not distracted by the sounds, looking at what's actually there. Start with the carpet. When was it last replaced? Can you see the stains they've stopped trying to hide? The wear patterns that reveal how traffic flows and how long it's been since anyone cared. Look at the walls. The scuffs nobody painted over, the chips in the trim, the fixtures that were modern 15 years ago and haven't been touched since. Check the elevators. How many are out of service? How long do you wait? What does the inside look like when the doors finally open? Examine the bathrooms. The soap dispensers that don't dispense, the hand dryers that don't dry, the stalls with locks that don't lock. Count the things that should be fixed and aren't. The list grows every month. This is what triage looks like. When money gets tight, maintenance is the first thing cut. Not because it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter immediately. A stained carpet doesn't stop operations. A broken elevator inconveniences guests but doesn't close the casino. A bathroom with temperamental fixtures still functions, technically, so the money that should go to upkeep goes somewhere else. Debt service, executive bonuses, keeping the lights on one more quarter, and the decay accumulates, layer by layer, month by month, until one day you look around and realize you're standing in a building that used to gleam and now just survives. This is the signal you can see. The visible evidence that the money flowing through these buildings isn't flowing toward guest experience anymore. It's flowing toward staying alive. And when a company stops maintaining its properties, it's not negligence. It's not oversight. It's a choice. A calculated decision about where the remaining resources go. And they're not going to you. They're going to creditors, to bondholders, to the debt payments that keep the doors open one more month. The guest experience has become an afterthought. What you see when you walk those floors is a company in triage, choosing which wounds to treat, letting others bleed. Number 5 is what happens when that triage fails completely, when the wounds start compounding, when the bleeding becomes impossible to hide. Number 5, service spiral. Let me tell you what a death spiral looks like in hospitality. It starts small. A wait time that used to be 5 minutes becomes 10. A request that used to be handled immediately takes an hour. A problem that used to get solved gets acknowledged and forgotten. You notice, but you rationalize. Maybe they're busy. Maybe it's a bad night. Maybe you're being too demanding. Then it happens again, and the pattern becomes undeniable. I've been tracking reviews across major platforms, not cherry-picking the angry ones, not hunting for horror stories, looking at averages, trends, the overall trajectory. Review scores across major strip properties are down an average of 18% in 2 years. 18%. The same buildings, the same addresses, the same names on the marquees. Dramatically worse experiences. This isn't perception, this is measurement. Thousands of guests, documenting the same decline, using the same words, waited 45 minutes for a drink that never came, called maintenance 3 times, nobody showed, front desk couldn't solve a problem they created, felt like we were bothering them by being guests. The complaints aren't random anymore, they're systematic. A pattern so consistent, it stops being about individual failures and starts being about institutional collapse. Service spiral is what happens when you cut too deep. When skeleton crews try to do the work of full staffs. When training gets eliminated because there's no budget. When workers are so stretched that every guest becomes a burden instead of an opportunity. The experience degrades. Guests leave unhappy. Reviews tank. Fewer guests book. Revenue drops. More cuts get made. Service degrades further. Round and round. Faster and faster. Until stopping the spiral requires more resources than the company has left. Number 4. Brain drain. This one's personal because it's about people, not numbers, not metrics, not financial instruments. The humans who made Vegas work. The floor manager who could read a room, who knew when a high roller needed attention and when a honeymoon couple needed to feel special. 23 years of learning those rhythms, gone. Found a job in Phoenix. The cocktail waitress who remembered every regular's drink, who moved through the casino like she owned it. 18 years of relationships built one conversation at a time, gone. Managing a restaurant in Texas now. The dealer who could turn a losing night into a good story, who made people feel lucky even when they weren't. 15 years of making magic at the tables, gone. Dealing at a tribal casino 2 states away. These aren't layoffs, these are resignations, voluntary departures. The people who have options are using them. That's the key distinction. When times get tough, the first people to leave are always the ones who can, the ones with skills that transfer, the ones with reputations that open doors, the ones good enough that other employers want them. The best leave first, always. And what's left behind are the ones who can't leave, who are trapped by circumstance or geography or obligations they can't escape. That's not an insult to the workers still there. It's an observation about what happens to any organization when talent starts fleeing. The institutional knowledge walks out the door. The relationships disappear. The culture that took decades to build evaporates in months. You can't train a replacement for 23 years of experience. You can't onboard someone into relationships that don't exist anymore. You can't rebuild culture from a manual. The people who made Vegas feel like Vegas are gone, and they're not coming back. Not after how they were treated. Not after watching colleagues get pushed out. Not after seeing what this industry has become. Brain drain isn't just about losing workers. It's about losing the ability to deliver the experience that justified the prices. It's about losing the thing that made Vegas different from everywhere else. Service collapsing. Best workers leaving. The machine breaking down in real time. But here's what makes numbers 3 through 1 different. The signals we've covered so far are internal. Executive moves. Financial metrics. Operational decline. Staff departures. You have to know where to look to see them. Numbers 3 through 1 are external. They come from outside the company, from customers, from the market, from reality itself. These aren't signals that leadership can spin or manage or explain away. They're measurements of whether the outside world still wants what Vegas is selling. And those measurements are devastating. Number 3, the signal that every tourism economy watches obsessively. The vital sign. The heartbeat. Visitor counts. This is the number that everything else depends on. You can have problems with service. You can have problems with staffing. You can have problems with debt and maintenance and executive retention. But if visitors keep coming, you have a chance. You have revenue. You have breathing room. You have time to fix things. Visitor counts tell you whether the demand exists. And Vegas's heartbeat is slowing, not stabilizing, not recovering, slowing. 18 consecutive months of decline. No bottom in sight, no floor being found, just continuous fall. Every projection revised downward, every forecast missed, every optimistic assumption proven wrong. This is the number that can't be spun, can't be explained away, can't be hidden in footnotes or offset with creative accounting. People are either coming or they're not, and they're not. 18 months of decline. And what's causing that decline? What's driving the exodus? What's pushing visitors away faster than Vegas can replace them? That's number 2, the signal that shows why the bleeding won't stop. Number 3, visitor count freefall. Let me give you two numbers. 42 million. That's how many people visited Las Vegas in 2019. 42 million human beings flooding through McCarran Airport, driving in from California, filling every hotel room and casino, floor and restaurant seat in the city. 42 million dreamers who saved their money and booked their flights and believed the promise that Vegas was selling. Now the second number, 19.6 million. That's where we are now, less than half. And falling. Not stabilizing, not finding a floor, not bouncing along a bottom waiting for recovery. Falling. Every month the number comes in lower than projected. Every quarter the forecasts get revised downward. Every year the gap between expectation and reality widens. The models assumed recovery. Recovery isn't happening. The models assumed pent-up demand. The demand is gone. The models assumed the middle class would come back when conditions improved. Conditions improved. They didn't come back. 19.6 million. And the trajectory points down. I talked to a tourism analyst who's been tracking Vegas numbers for 15 years. She showed me her charts. The projections versus actuals. The trend lines. The mathematical reality of what's happening. She said something that stuck with me. She said, everyone keeps waiting for the inflection point, the quarter where things turn around, where the decline stops and recovery begins. I stopped looking for it. The data doesn't support it. What we're seeing isn't a dip, it's a new normal, and the new normal is half the visitors we used to have. Half. Permanently. Think about what that means. A city built for 42 million people. The hotels, the restaurants, the staffing models, the debt payments, all of it designed for a volume that no longer exists. Running at half capacity, forever, that's not a problem you solve with marketing. That's not a situation you grow out of. That's an existential mismatch between supply and demand. Too many rooms, too few guests, too much infrastructure, too little revenue, too much debt, too little hope. Number 2, repeat visitor collapse. This is the number that keeps executives awake at night, or should. Let me explain why. In any tourism economy, there are two types of visitors. First-timers, people experiencing the destination for the first time. They need to be convinced, marketed to, sold on the promise. They're expensive to acquire. Then there are repeat visitors, people who've been before, who loved it enough to come back, who need no convincing because they've already decided. They're free, no marketing spend, no acquisition cost, just loyalty converted into revenue. Repeat visitors are the foundation of every successful tourism destination. The guaranteed income, the predictable baseline, the number you can count on no matter what. In Vegas, repeat visitors used to account for over 60% of all traffic. 60%! People who came twice a year, 3 times, who planned their trips before last year's trip ended. That number has collapsed, down 34% from 2019. 34% of the loyalists, gone. These weren't casual tourists. These were believers. People who built traditions around Vegas, who celebrated anniversaries here, who brought friends and family, who evangelized the city to everyone they knew. They're not visiting somewhere else. They're not coming at all. And here's why this can't be recovered. Every fee hit them first. The resort charges, the parking costs, the nickel and diming that first-time tourists might not notice. Repeat visitors noticed everything. They remembered when it was different, when the buffet cost $12, when parking was free, when the cocktail waitress knew their name. They felt the betrayal personally, because it was personal. They gave Vegas their loyalty. Vegas gave them resort fees. A first-time tourist might shrug off a bad experience, write it off as bad luck, try again someday. A repeat visitor who gets burned has 30 years of comparison. They know exactly what was taken from them. They know exactly how it used to feel. And they don't forgive. They can't forgive, because forgiveness would require forgetting what they lost. 34% of the loyalists walked away, took their guaranteed revenue with them, took their advocacy with them, took their decades of future visits with them. Gone. That's not churn, that's amputation. And amputated limbs don't grow back. Visitor counts collapsing, repeat visitors vanishing. The demand side of the equation broken beyond repair. First-timers aren't showing up fast enough to replace the loyalists who left. The math doesn't work. The math can't work. But number 1 is the warning sign that ties everything together. The signal that tells you whether an industry can survive what's happening to it. the single metric that historically separates struggling industries from dead ones. And for Vegas, that signal is flashing one message. A message I didn't want to believe until I saw the evidence. A message that changes everything. Number 1. Loss of pricing power. This is the signal that matters more than all the others combined. Let me explain why. Every healthy business has something called pricing power. The ability to charge what the market will bear. The ability to raise prices when costs go up. The ability to adjust rates based on demand and have customers accept those adjustments. Pricing power is control. It means you can respond to problems, cover unexpected costs, invest in improvements, weather downturns. When you have pricing power, you have options. When you lose it, you have nothing. Here's how you know pricing power is gone. You raise prices, customers leave. Okay, that happens. Maybe you raise too much, so you lower prices, run promotions, offer discounts. Customers still don't come. That's the signal. That's the moment when the math becomes unsolvable. You can't charge more because they won't pay. You can't charge less because they still won't come. No price point works. Nothing you do with the numbers changes the outcome. Vegas is there now. They raised prices aggressively from 2021 to 2023. Premium pricing, fewer visitors spending more money. Customers fled. Repeat visitors down 34%. Total visitors cut in half. The premium strategy produced premium losses. So properties started discounting, room rates dropping, promotions running, deals appearing that wouldn't have existed 2 years ago. The rooms still aren't filling. I've watched the booking data. Properties offering rates 30% below peak pricing, still showing availability, still running at 60% occupancy when they need 80 to survive. The discounts aren't working. The demand isn't there. Not at high prices, not at low prices, not at any price. That's loss of pricing power, and it's fatal. Let me show you why. When you can't raise prices, you can't grow revenue, you can't cover cost increases, you can't service debt that was structured for a different economy. When discounts don't attract customers, you can't fill rooms. You can't generate the volume that might compensate for lower rates. You can't trade margin for traffic. You're trapped. High prices lose customers. Low prices lose money. There's no winning number. This is where industries go to die. I've studied the pattern. Newspapers lost pricing power in 2008. Advertising rates collapsed. Subscription revenue couldn't compensate. They tried raising prices. Readers left. They tried cutting prices. Advertisers didn't care. Within a decade, the industry was gutted. Thousands of papers closed. Hundreds of thousands of jobs gone. Loss of pricing power was the signal that sealed it. Retail lost pricing power around 2015. Amazon set the floor. Traditional stores couldn't match it. They tried premium positioning. Customers didn't bite. They tried discounting to compete. Margins evaporated. Look at the malls now. Empty anchors, shuttered food courts, parking lots with weeds growing through the cracks. Loss of pricing power was the signal. The hotel industry and secondary markets. The taxi industry before Uber, the music industry after Napster. Same pattern every time. Pricing power disappears, options narrow, the spiral accelerates. And then collapse. Not always sudden, sometimes slow. Years of bleeding out before the final fall. But inevitable. Always inevitable. Vegas has lost pricing power. The evidence is undeniable. High prices drove customers away. Low prices aren't bringing them back. The demand curve has shifted permanently, not because of temporary factors, not because of economic cycles that will reverse, because the customers who used to come are drowning in debt, because the loyalty that used to guarantee visits has been systematically destroyed, because the experience that used to justify the prices has been hollowed out. There's no price point that fixes those problems, no number on a rate sheet that rebuilds trust, no discount deep enough to resurrect a dead relationship. Vegas can't charge more. Vegas can't charge less. Vegas is out of moves. I showed this list to an economist, someone who studies industry collapse professionally. She looked at it for maybe 30 seconds. Then she said something I haven't stopped thinking about. She said, "This isn't a warning anymore. This is a diagnosis. 10 warning signs. Every single one present. Every single one documented. Every single one flashing right now while the fountains dance and the slot machines sing and the tourists who don't know any better pose for photos they'll regret. Warning signs stop being warnings at some point. They become autopsy notes. Causes of death documented before the body stops moving. That's what this list is. Not a prediction of what might happen, a record of what's already happening. The diagnosis has been made. Industry analysts project 18 to 36 months. Before the first major bankruptcy, before the cascade begins, before the dominoes start falling, maybe sooner. The pressure is accelerating. Every month of decline compounds the damage. Every quarter of missed projections tightens the noose. Every signal on this list reinforces the others. But here's the thing, Vegas will continue operating. The lights will stay on. The performance will continue. Tomorrow night, the strip will look exactly like it looked yesterday. The fountains will dance on schedule. The casinos will open their doors. The machines will sing their electronic songs. From a distance, nothing will seem different. That's how collapse works. It's invisible until it isn't. The Titanic kept moving for hours after hitting the iceberg. The passengers kept dancing. The band kept playing. Everything seemed fine until suddenly it wasn't. The warning signs were there. They just didn't turn fast enough. Vegas sees these signals. The executives who are leaving see them. The credit agencies who are downgrading see them. The workers who are quitting see them. Everyone sees them. And the ship still isn't turning. The same strategies that created these problems continue. The same extraction, the same cuts, the same short-term thinking, the same choices that guaranteed this outcome being made again and again. As if doing the same thing harder will somehow produce different results. It won't. The math doesn't change. The signals don't lie. 10 warnings, all visible, all documented, all ignored, 1 diagnosis, 0 solutions. The collapse isn't coming. The collapse is here. Growing every day, compounding every quarter, accelerating toward a conclusion that everyone sees and nobody stops. The only question left is timing. How long until the first major bankruptcy? How long until the cascade begins? How long until everyone stops pretending? 18 months, maybe 36, maybe less. The clock is ticking, the signals are flashing, and the ship still isn't turning.